I hope you're doing well. I want to thank you so very much for joining me today. Yesterday we discussed the question of what do you think of the Christ? And in the end of that video I mentioned the real question, or the question at judgment, will be what does Christ think of me? In the book of Matthew, chapter 25, starting in verse 31, we see a scene of judgment here. It says, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and with all the holy angels with him." It says, "Then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats." Notice verse 33. "And he will set the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left." Then in verse 34, "Then the king will say to those on his right hand, 'Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.'" The first question of what does Jesus think of me is what side of that judgment am I going to be on? Just as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, am I going to be on the right hand or the left hand? It's a question worth asking. What does the Christ think of me? He gives a reason for this in verse 35. "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in." He goes on and on and on. And notice verse 37. "Then the righteous will answer him, saying, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?'" And he answers in verse 40, "And the king will answer and say to them, 'Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me.'" So we see that those on the right hand are told, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world," because that they were gentle, they were peaceable, all of these things, and the things that they the things they had done for those less fortunate. But on the other hand of that, verse 41, "Then he will also say to those on the left hand, 'Depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels.'" And he lists the reason why. But notice verse 46. "At those on the left," it says, "and these will go into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." So when asking the question, what does the Christ think of me, we need to really have in mind, what side of this am I going to be on, the right or the left? What is he going to say to me, and why is he going to say it? In Matthew chapter 7, in verse 21, Jesus says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, 'Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, and done many wonders, and cast out demons, and done many wonders in your name?' But notice what he says in verse 23, "And I will declare to them." I like what one translation says, "And I will say to them plainly, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness.'" So the question is, what does the Christ think of me? What is the Christ going to say to me on judgment? "Depart from me, I never knew you," or "Enter into the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world"? What does the Christ think of me? I want to thank you so very much for watching, and I certainly hope to see you